athletes and intersex athletes. We'll talk to Professor Niall Moynihan just after 8 o'clock. Obviously a sensitive and increasingly significant issue in the world of sport. Andy West is going to join us from Spain as well on Zinedine Zidane's spectacular return to Madrid. 53106 the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Dan McDonnell here in the studio. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
And Richie McCormick, how you doing?
Joseph, how are you?
So Cheltenham day one threw up lots of stories.
Yeah, like a sort of a grief-stricken day one, not the day one that a lot of people would have expected. I mean, I know we'd spoken yesterday about the weather, the impact it would make, and there was sort of grueling conditions today rather than sort of speedy conditions. And when you think that, I suppose, racing enthusiasts and a lot of people would have looked ahead to the champion hurdle as the race of the week. So you got the defending champion Bouvardere going for 3 in a row, and the two brilliant mares, Apples Jade and Lorena. And if you'd said that not one of those horses would finish in the first 3, you would have been carted off somewhere. And then followed up with that, with this sort of extraordinary story where Ruby Walsh and Benny Deju, which would have been, I suppose, a lot of people's banker today, falling at the last in almost identical circumstances to Annie Power a couple of years back, in the same race, in the same colours, at the same flight, at the same situation, where there's absolutely no doubt that this horse is going to win.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be sore about that, and then also there will be a lot of idiots taking aim at Ruby Walsh over that, which is sort of grossly unfair. But when you think that Ruby Walsh 2 hours earlier had ridden the winner of the first race, and he was on about how he loved Cheltenham and how great life is, it just goes to show how it can all flip very quickly. And I say he had a miserable day.
Yeah, it's fickle.
So it's an absolute brute of a game sometimes. But this is Cheltenham. That it destroys sort of reputations of good horses. It places scrutiny and expectation and tackles everything, and it delivers storylines every year. And today was a bit nuts, I have to say, even by regular Cheltenham standards.
Let's start your news run, Richie, because it is all about Cheltenham. Gavin Cromwell, certainly a good story from an Irish point of view.
Yeah, the Gavin Cromwell train. Espoir Dallin upset the favourites, as Dan mentioned, to claim the feature race on the opening day of the Cheltenham Festival. The 16-to-1 shot romped home a 15-length winner over Mellon to win that champion hurdle. Bouvardere, who was looking for a third consecutive win in the race, fell at the third fence. Winning jockey Mark Walsh was full of praise for both Espoir Dallin and the winning trainer when speaking with Mike Vince.
Great, and from a 5-year-old as well. Everyone says that 5-year-olds can't win them, and he's the first horse to do it since Catches. He's an exciting horse to look forward to.
I mean, Gavin's done a terrific job, hasn't he?
Oh, brilliant. Gavin's a very shrewd trainer. He knows the time of day. He can train a good one.
Elsewhere, Willie Mullins trained a pair of opening day winners, with Classical Dream claiming Supreme Novices hurdle under the aforementioned Ruby Walsh, while Duke de Genèvre was a 5-to-1 winner of the Arkle. There was a first ever Cheltenham victory for jockey Rachel Blackmore, who rode the favourite A Plus Tard to victory in the Novices Handicap Chase. The Nicky Henderson trained Beware the Bear claimed the Ultima Handicap Chase at a price of 10-to-1. And there was drama in the Mare's Hurdle, as you heard, with odds-on favourite Benny Deju falling at the last, with victory instead going to the 10-to-1 chance Roxana.
For Cromwell, it's an extraordinary story, his career, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's an up-and-coming sort of dual star trainer. I mean, he had a couple of horses running on the flat at Southall today, the other end of the scale in terms of racing glamour. And for him to suddenly... I think actually, the commentary, the coverage today, I didn't catch all of it, but the English commentators, naturally they speak about Cromwell as though like this was the first big winner of his career or something like that. I think in Ireland people are aware that he's a rising star trainer, but he's gone mainstream, I guess, with a victory like this, with a 5-year-old who, as the jockey said afterwards, was ridden to be placed in the race effectively, and then just couldn't believe how well he was going, and as others were fading. But yeah, I mean, Cromwell is, we have terrific trainers in this country. We have terrific sort of horse people like Cromwell. Again, I'm not 100% sure of his background in terms of his family situation, but it's not a typical one. He's a neighbour to Gordon Elliott. He'd worked as a farrier, which means he would have been sort of helping to treat sort of Elliott with some of his horses. Like that's almost how he would be known. So I know Johnny Ward, who sits here regularly, would have horses in training with Gavin Cromwell, would have had horses in training with Gavin Cromwell pretty regularly, and would speak really highly of what he can do with average horses and make them slightly better. But to suddenly have a situation where a 5-year-old wins the champion hurdle by 15 lengths, that certainly puts him onto a pedestal now, and that sort of builds its own momentum. People want to send him horses, and it goes from there. So in some ways, as much as I talk about the grief today, and there was grief in the sense of shocks and upsets and reputations, and Apple's Jade hugely disappointing. And
what happened Apple's Jade?
Oh, just didn't
badly.
Seemed to be in the running at all.
Set the pace early on, and then midway through the race there was a couple of falls, a couple of clipped hurdles, etc. But from that point on, from the midpoint of the race on, really tied up pretty badly. And
she was never going. She was never travelling. I think, unfortunately, after the second, as someone who had backed Apple's Jade, after the second hurdle, I was like, this ain't happening. Mellon took her on up front. There's a theory that she doesn't necessarily like Cheltenham that much. Today would fuel it to some degree. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this now who might have got involved with some of the more public, well-known horses today. And when Bouvardere falls at the third hurdle, I think while the Cromwell story is great, the race itself was a massive anticlimax. When it sort of panned out as it did. Not to take away from what is a fantastic story, but Apple's Jade just too bad to be true, and just a lot of things. But
was there any explanation afterwards for Apple's Jade?
No, I actually haven't heard I haven't heard the interviews from their camp. I mean, they actually haven't had a very good day. The Elliott team haven't had a good day. They had Hardline, it was very well fancied in the second race. The Arkle never travelled either. And they would have been the two main. Even the horses in the first race, one of them, Felix Dejdi, the surprise horse, ran okay. So what I would say though, as much as there's grief today and bad stories, in some ways it perpetuates some of the good news stories in Irish racing this year, like Rachel Blackmore, I think we'll have on, like Mark Walsh, the jockey of Sport Alan, who is sort of the understudy in the McManus operation to Barry Geraghty, but he's an excellent jockey in his own right. And again, this brings him into the mainstream, maybe in England, whereas I think people here would know. So it is incredible, really, the depth of Irish racing, in the sense that you can have some high-profile flops. And unfortunately, that is the term you have to use, and yet there's an Irish story still sort of propping up the day. And I'm sure the guys who are over there covering it, they had so many stories to choose from today, both good and bad.
Rachel Blackmore rode the favourite. We'll talk to her around 7:30.
Absolute tired, yeah.
Any other favourites win today, or is this?
No, that was the only favourite that won today, and that won so easily. I'm sure you'll speak to Rachel about it. No, I mean it was hard going for people who maybe follow favourites, or would have done a lot of maybe sort of bets to do across the week, say, with a couple each day, building across the week. They'll all be back to the drawing board today. I might be referring to myself there, but it is, there will be people in that sort of territory. The Ruby Benny the Juice scenario is just freakish, and that's what it is.
Did he speak afterwards?
No. He certainly hasn't spoken yet. He hasn't spoken yet about it all. But I mean, he takes it like a ludicrous.
What was your read on the fall? What was your read on the fall?
I don't know, because sometimes I'm not an expert in how a jockey presents a horse into a hurdle. So and the ITV team, they're never, in fairness, racing pundits, a lot of them are ex-jockeys. They know the bravery of the jockeys, so they're never really going to get stuck into criticising. AP McCoy was saying, well, listen, he'd like to do it again.
That's a decent enough euphemism.
I'm not sure. The horse actually jumped at Breezy Bell and just pitched afterwards. All these raggers should have gone a bit safer and just sort of popped them into it when he was going to win. But that's so easy to say. And as I said, the amount of rubbish that he's exposed to now, which is just it's. I mean, it is the internet world, and people with sort of weird theories and stuff, which is just ludicrous.
Hang on. Right. Take all the idiots on Twitter.
Yeah.
Let's discount that for a second.
Yeah, I think
that's
it's important.
An obvious point to make.
A lot of people would be exposed to it.
Okay. So there's idiots on Twitter saying,
just don't even.
What you might imagine they're saying about Ruby falling at the last. Right. Ignore that. That's gone. I'm asking though, he is still not above making a mistake. Based on what you're saying, it may have been classed as a mistake. And we are talking about potentially the greatest jockey ever. So I appreciate that, but it doesn't mean he's above mistake. So that was the read, the ITV pundit.
Well, no, I think that was just a phrase you'd want to take it back, you know, and I don't know. Like, it was a bit different to Annie Power in some ways. Annie Power was really aggressively ridden into the last, and today it was almost in slow motion, like it happened after the hurdle. I know I said earlier it was identical, but maybe there was slight differences. It didn't seem to be going the same speed, and it was a slightly slower horse. And I know it's the same race, but maybe going a bit slower. And I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I'm sure he's his own worst critic, and I'm sure. But like, the thing is, Ruby's in this. Ruby rides a lot of good horses. Ruby puts a lot of good horses into position going to the last when they're in the lead. Yeah. And that means, like, there's a very good chance he's going to have a couple of fallers in that situation. Yeah. And it's analysed, to death when it does happen. Okay. But this is still. I'm sure on mature reflection, in a couple of weeks, I'd love to hear Ruby talk about it. But I'm sure it's really raw now. And as I said earlier, you win the first, you think life's brilliant, and he's probably going home tonight sick.
How's his week shaping up?
Well, that's the thing. Like, the Willie Mullins horses won the first two races today, and we touched on it a bit yesterday, that the ground has probably returned, and his horses are running into form. And actually, with the exception of Arena, the horses actually ran okay today. Unfortunately, they lost the horse in the last race, Ballyward, who fell. It was a favourite. But actually, so I think you take away the massive disappointment of Benny the Jew. I think the Mullins team, or people who follow the Mullins horses, would think actually Ruby might have a better week than some people would have thought. But the flip side of that is he thought his best chance of the entire week was the horse that fell at the last, Benny. Okay. So, but I think he'll have prospects across the week, and the Mullins horses generally are certainly running well. Okay,
Champions League this evening?
Yeah, Manchester City aiming to avoid becoming the latest victims of a second leg turnover in the Champions League last 16. Tonight, Pep Guardiola's Premier League leaders holding a 3-2 lead over Bundesliga side Schalke heading into tonight's game at the Etihad. City line up with Ederson in goal, a back four of Kyle Walker, Danilo, Aymeric Laporte and Alexander Zinchenko. Pardon me. Ilkay Gundogan and David Silva sit in midfield. In front of them are Raheem Sterling, Leroy Sané and Bernardo Silva, with Sergio Aguero leading the line. Something of a 4-4-2 for Schalke tonight. Ralph Furman starts in goal. Jeffrey Bruma, Benjamin Stambouli, Bastian Otsipka are in the defence for them. Stuart Serdar sits in midfield along with Weston McKennie, Yevhen Kolopianka, Guido Bergstaller and Briel Mbolo leading the line for them. Pardon me. Elsewhere, Diego Simeone refusing to view his Atletico Madrid side as favourites for their tie with Juventus. Atletico taking a 2-0 lead to the home of the Italian champions for their last 16 second leg. Juventus line up with Wojciech Szczesny in goal, João Cancelo, Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci and Leonardo Spinazzola as their back four. In midfield then, Emre Can, Federico Bernardeschi, Miralem Pjanic and Blaise Matuidi, with Mario Mandzukic and Cristiano Ronaldo leading the line for them. For Atleti, it's Jan Oblak in goal, Santiago Arias, Jose Jimenez, Diego Godin and Juan Fran in defence. Saul and Rodrigo anchored midfield, with Thomas Lemar and Koke either side of them. Antoine Griezmann and Alvaro Morata are those that start up front, and both games have 8 o'clock starts.
So that feels like City should be fine, notwithstanding how mental last week was.
The all away teams, the away teams.
The away goal, Dan, is crucial.
Well, see, they have a couple of their own, but the away teams,
three to be exact.
The away teams not playing under pressure. That was the story last week in some ways. You can, although as I said, Manchester United were under pressure for long periods of the game, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Schalke can just come and give it a pop and see if they can make it.
No, they can. It's particularly interesting in Turin. If Atletico score one, it feels like a knockout blow.
You just can't see Atletico. Well, I mean, here we go. We can sort of discuss this later.
I think you can say you can't see them four.
I mean, you just can't see them be the type of team that implodes, and that's why maybe there isn't that same sense of anticipation around this tie. Maybe, I don't know. We could be a very different discussion if Juve burst out of the blocks and score early, but you sort of trust that they'll get the job done.
I think you can say that.
Yeah,
you're not going to.
It's hardly actually. That's a pretty brutal analysis, isn't it? Really, but there you go. You got it.
She's pulled your neck in, Dan.
Yeah, what a shot.
So, Josh van der Fleer?
Yeah, he's been ruled out of Saturday's final Six Nations game with Wales. The Leinster flanker suffered a groin injury in the first half of Ireland's win over France last weekend. Dan Levy, though, does return to the squad, having not featured so far in this campaign due to a calf injury. Rob Kearney is expected to be fit for Cardiff, having been a late withdrawal from the win over Les Bleus, while Joey Carberry is back in contention after a hamstring injury. Meanwhile, Jonathan Sexton is keen to put the notion of an unhappy camp to bed for once and for all.
If you saw us train before Scotland and Italy, we trained the house down, and then we had our bad day on the Saturday, and we trying to figure out why it happened. Maybe we got to the bottom of it, and we figured out something for the French game. But look, there's been a bounce of energy in the squad since day one, since we met up in Portugal. It's always a great place to be, this Irish camp. We were led by brilliant coaches and captain, and there's always a great camaraderie around the place, and that's been no different. So despite the frustrations on the Saturday and sometimes that boiling over, it's always been a happy camp.
There's a text in from Gav. Dan sounds like a man who's lost big today. I share that sense, Gav, I must say, listening to him. There's a hollowness in his eyes that I have never seen before. I can feel the emotion in his voice coming through the speakers, says Gav. Win or lose, Cheltenham's a hell of a spectacle, but that's easy for me to say. I didn't place any bets, says Gav.
It still is a hell of a spectacle, though.
Yes, but we can hear the pain.
No, it's not that painful, but
the fact that you came out with started out with it, no, suggested actually.
No, I think it is.
Came in here and asked me if I'd lend of a tenner to the end of the week.
No, that could be later in the week. No, like it is a hell of a spectacle, though. That's the thing. Like, you have to expect it. I think anyone, like, sometimes people who don't follow the sport who go mad over these things, but I think if you follow it week to week, day to day, you have to go in with your eyes open that things like this can happen.
Hey, speaking of going mad, I dared to voice a small opinion on Twitter about
Never do that, Joe.
Next story.
Never do that.
It's fair to say Declan Rice
yeah,
is still irritating people. So this news came it is hilarious. It is hilarious. Go on.
Further embarrassment, as you alluded to there.
Is there, though?
Yes.
Is there further embarrassment?
For the FAI, yes, surrounding Declan Rice. They've revealed that the West Ham midfielder won the Young Player of the Year award, set to be given out this Sunday. The FAI say the award was voted for by members of the Soccer Writers Association, Daniel, when Rice was still technically a Republic of Ireland international. Rice has since switched his allegiance to play for England, and the FAI say he will not be in attendance in Dublin to collect his award.
Are you on? You must be on that, are you?
No, well, I am a member of Soccer Writers, but I'm not on the panel this year. It rotates from year to year, so I've been on the panel in the past. When the Young Player of the Year award one year, I'm not even sure if there was any candidates, and because to qualify for Young Player of the Year you have to have played for the senior international team effectively during the calendar year of the previous calendar year. So
is there an age point at it?
It had to be pushed up to 25 because there was years
short.
Genuinely so short. So I mean, Rice was by far the outstanding candidate to win it. I mean, Rice could have been a candidate for the senior award.
Here's what I said, and I'll read you some of the replies to give you a sense of the feeling out there.
Okay.
No, because actually there are people.
There's mixed views. I know Aidan Fitzmaurice wrote a piece on the Independent website, strongly critical of the decision.
Oh, fair enough. Did he? Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Neil O'Riordan offered his explanation. He was on the panel.
He was on the panel this year. Yeah.
There's people making good points on Twitter as well. I said Rice was the best player, clearly the best young player last year. Why be petty? Dead right. Give him the award. The only laughing stock, as opposed to the FAI or Irish football, is international football. That is the only laughing stock here.
I'm not sure if the international football is the only laughing stock.
So who else is a laughing stock then?
Irish
football? The FAI?
It's the type of story that can easily be... You can just imagine it sort of making and finally in sort of an English news site.
It's everywhere.
It might be.
English sites, French sites already have it.
It already has made those stories. It's highly unusual. But it's more highly unusual than anything. It's a little bit... It is funny because he is declared for England, but I don't know if anyone... It's a laughing stock. These are just the circumstances.
Well, the thing is, the decision, I think the panel would have sat, you sit well in advance of the awards. I think it might have been very early this year for some reason, but the decision would have been made when Declan Rice was still an Ireland player. So I think firstly picking Declan Rice as the Young Player of the Year was the right decision. At the time the decision was made, he would have been an Irish international at that stage. The question is, do you fudge it afterwards and do a revote again? Yeah. Or do you can the award?
So what would you do?
I don't know. I think if someone, I guess on Sunday night, because that's when the awards are, if say, I think, and I'm going back to Aidan Fitzmaurice's piece, he referenced Aidan O'Brien, and he's probably the one, I guess, because it really is a struggle sometimes to think. There would have been quite a few who played last year actually, but say Aidan O'Brien had won the award. I think the FAI possibly might be sensitive to the fact that, well, it will be written or people will be aware, well, actually, he didn't really win the award. The original winner was someone else. So that becomes a story. And then if Aidan O'Brien's in an uncomfortable situation, that he's out there when he actually there's a danger of being a story. Well, this was a sham. We know he didn't actually win it.
Just scrap the award for the year.
So I think
because these things are
that probably would have become a story too. And I say this as I guess you could have done something with that either way. Although it's funny, there's mixed views. I get a lot of Declan Rice fatigue even from chatting to people as well, and people just they throw their eyes. They don't want another Declan Rice.
What would you have done?
I think on balance, maybe dropping the award this year.
Oh, well, you shouldn't be on the Soccer Writers Association anymore, I think.
Like, listen, if they're going to change the criteria...
I reserve my right to change that within 2 minutes. I don't think giving it to someone who wouldn't have been the award winner,
I don't think it's fair.
I think that would have presented a difficulty.
But if you're going to change the criteria of the awards to include people like that are 25 just because you haven't got enough candidates, then the actual criteria for the award is broken anyway. So if you scrap it, it doesn't matter. It's like all awards like this are just makey-uppy things anyway. I
have a feeling, and I'm not actually sure about this, that because the goals, I'm not sure what they've done with the goal of the year competition this year, because Ireland only scored 4 goals last year. And to make a short list of 3 from some goals, I think they might have thrown it. I think there's a suggestion they might be throwing it up to other underage categories, which possibly shows, as in, goals underage. I'm not sure if that's actually happened, but that, I guess, goes to show that the rules for the award aren't fixed and set in stone.
Yes, but it's hard to mess around too much with the criteria for Player of the Year award. It's the Player of the Year.
They had a year where they didn't even have an award.
Did they?
2003, there was like, there's nothing happened.
I'm not sure what happened at that. That's before my time.
I just think he was the best player.
It's a sort of a bit embarrassing one for him as well, actually.
To be honest, of anyone who would feel a bit queasy about this whole thing, it shouldn't be Irish football, it should be Declan Rice.
I think
it just highlights the fact he played 3 times for the country.
I'd say he probably doesn't care at this stage.
No, I'd say he saw that news today and went, oh God.
I guess
what
the
am I doing?
I guess we'll make up for it tomorrow when he's in the England squad.
I guess the FAI tried to get ahead of the story in some way.
I almost admire them for that.
Yeah.
The fact that they tried to own it and say, hey, listen, these things are happening on Sunday. This lad's getting the award. This is the criteria that it happened under.
Put a montage of his best bits on the night and play it.
I don't know. I doubt they'll do that. I actually don't know, because Grealish took the award when he was about to head off. He was 21 and he had the family over and everything. Maybe they were there to get some stuff from the duty free. Their last stop there, and they head off home.
Okay. It's a very difficult position because it becomes a story.
I actually think, I'm trying to think, could they have just brazened it out and made no reference to it at all, and then come Sunday just not have a Young Player of the Year award? I guess I'm thinking if you're advising them on a strategy, it's all you have to do. Come Sunday, the news agenda, the stories could have moved on.
Just put in the press release the under-21 player of the year was, the under-18 player. Emphasise that. You don't have to point out the fact that there's no Young Player of the Year award.
I mean, yeah, you could argue that the Young Player of the Year award
should be anyway.
Given the problems that they've had with it in recent years, maybe that would have been the real opportunistic way to do it. So, listen, I'll be very critical of the FAI a lot.
Yeah.
And there's many reasons to be. I have a bit of sympathy for in this one, I have to say.
Ultimately, much ado about nothing as well. 2 last stories, Rich.
Liverpool will be without Naby Keita for tomorrow night's Champions League last 16 second leg away to Bayern Munich. The midfielder hasn't travelled to Bavaria due to a minor injury, they say. Trent Alexander-Arnold was among that travelling party of 21 despite sustaining a minor injury of his own 4 minutes from the end of Saturday's 4-2 win over Burnley. Klopp will also continue to monitor the fitness of both Dejan Lovren and James Milner. Well, Tiger Woods says his recent neck pain was the byproduct of his spinal fusion surgery. The current world number 11 pulled out of last week's Arnold Palmer Invitational as he wanted the soreness in his neck to ease. Woods is in the field for this week's Players' Championship, which gets underway on Thursday at Sawgrass, and he says he's now pain-free and ready to tackle the course this week.
Okay, so short break. We're back with Rachel Blackmore and we're going to go over to John Duggan at Cheltenham as well.
Off the ball on News Talk. Lunchtime Live.
This week, News Talk is exploring all that Northern Ireland has to offer. So far, we've been to Belfast and Derry, and tomorrow I'll be continuing the exploration as Lunchtime Live comes from the stunning shoreline of